The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, officially ended the First World War. It was meant to be a treaty to end all wars. Instead, it became a breeding ground for resentment and ultimately contributed to the outbreak of another devastating conflict just 2 decades later. How could a treaty designed to bring peace pave the way for another war? The answer lies in the harsh terms imposed on Germany and the volatile political landscape it created. The treaty, drafted by the victors, was negotiated in an atmosphere of grief, anger, and a thirst for revenge. Millions lay dead, and the world was in ruins. Germany, as the aggressor in the war, was held responsible for the devastation. The treaty's terms were meant to cripple Germany's military and economic power, ensuring it could never again pose a threat. However, the severity of these terms, particularly the crippling reparations payments, sowed the seeds of resentment among the German population. This resentment festered, creating fertile ground for extremist ideologies and nationalist sentiments to take root. The stage was set for another global conflict, one that would prove even more destructive than the first. The Treaty of Versailles placed the full blame for the war on Germany. This war guilt clause was particularly contentious and humiliating for the German people. It also came with a hefty price tag. Germany was ordered to pay massive reparations to the Allied nations. The sum, initially set at an astronomical £6.6 billion, was intended to cover the cost of the war and compensate for the immense losses suffered. The reparations crippled the German economy. Already reeling from the war, Germany now faced the impossible task of rebuilding while saddled with an insurmountable debt. The German mark plummeted in value, leading to hyperinflation and widespread economic hardship. The middle class was decimated, savings were wiped out, and poverty soared. The economic devastation had a profound impact on German society. It bred resentment towards the Allied powers, who were seen as oppressors. It also created a climate of despair and instability, which extremist groups, including the Nazi Party, were quick to exploit. The Treaty of Versailles redrew the map of Europe, aiming to create a more stable continent based on the principle of national self-determination. New nations emerged from the ashes of empires, including Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and Poland. Germany lost significant territory, including Alsace-Lorraine to France and parts of Prussia to Poland. While the creation of these new states fulfilled the aspirations of many, it also created new tensions and instabilities. The new borders were often drawn hastily and without regard for historical complexities or ethnic distributions. This led to the displacement of millions and created new minorities within these fledgling states, often leading to discrimination and unrest. The redrawing of borders also had unintended consequences for regional power dynamics. Germany, once a major power, was now surrounded by potentially hostile neighbors. This fueled a sense of vulnerability and resentment, contributing to the desire for a return to German strength and a revision of the treaty's terms. One of the more idealistic outcomes of the Treaty of Versailles was the establishment of the League of Nations. Conceived by U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, the League was intended to be an international organization dedicated to preventing future wars through collective security and diplomacy. The League of Nations represented a significant step towards international cooperation. It provided a forum for dialogue and aimed to resolve disputes peacefully. However, it was significantly weakened from the outset. The United States, instrumental in its creation, refused to join, fearing entanglement in foreign conflicts. This lack of participation from major powers, coupled with its limited ability to enforce its decisions, hampered the League's effectiveness. It proved incapable of preventing the escalating aggression of the 1930s, ultimately failing in its mission to prevent another world war. Despite its shortcomings, the League of Nations laid the groundwork for future international organizations like the United Nations. The humiliation and economic hardship inflicted by the Treaty of Versailles had a profound impact on German society. The treaty fostered a deep sense of resentment and wounded national pride. This created a fertile ground for extremist ideologies, including nationalism and fascism, to take root and flourish. Political parties on the far right, most notably the Nazi Party led by Adolf Hitler, exploited this widespread discontent. They skillfully manipulated the feelings of humiliation and anger, directing them toward the Treaty of Versailles and those they deemed responsible for Germany's plight. The Nazis promised to restore German pride and power, scapegoating Jews and other minorities for the nation's troubles. Their message resonated with a population desperate for change and a return to greatness. The seeds of hatred and intolerance sown in the aftermath of the First World War were taking root, setting the stage for another global conflict. Section 6. The Path to War, from Versailles to a Second Global Conflict. The Treaty of Versailles did not directly cause World War II. However, the harsh terms imposed on Germany, the economic turmoil it created, and the resentment it fostered created a climate ripe for another conflict. The treaty's failure to address the underlying issues of nationalism and militarism further contributed to the path to war. As the 1930s progressed, Germany, emboldened by a resurgent sense of nationalism and led by the increasingly aggressive Nazi regime, began to openly defy the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler rearmed Germany, reoccupied the Rhineland, and annexed Austria, all in violation of the treaty. The League of Nations, weakened and divided, proved incapable of stopping it. Appeasement, the policy of making concessions to Hitler in the hopes of avoiding war, only emboldened him further. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, it marked the beginning of World War II, a conflict even more devastating than the one it was meant to prevent. Section 7. The Treaty's Long Shadow, Versailles and the 20th Century. The Treaty of Versailles cast a long shadow over the 20th century. It serves as a cautionary tale about the complexities of peacemaking and the dangers of punitive treaties. Its legacy is a mixed one, marked by both its failures and the lessons learned from those failures. While the treaty failed to prevent another world war, it did contribute to the development of international law and the establishment of international organizations dedicated to promoting peace and cooperation. The horrors of two world wars underscored the need for a more just and equitable international order. The Treaty of Versailles also serves as a reminder of the devastating human cost of war and the importance of diplomacy and dialogue in resolving international disputes. The lessons learned from its shortcomings have shaped the way we approach peacemaking and conflict resolution today. Section 8. Learning from the past. The importance of just peace. The Treaty of Versailles highlights the crucial difference between peace and justice. While it brought an end to the fighting, it failed to address the underlying causes of the conflict and created new sources of tension and resentment. It underscores the need for just and lasting peace, one built on a foundation of reconciliation, forgiveness, and a commitment to addressing the root causes of conflict. It emphasizes the importance of inclusivity in the peace-building process, ensuring that all parties have a voice and that their concerns are addressed. The treaty's legacy reminds us that lasting peace requires more than just ending hostilities. It requires addressing the grievances and injustices that fueled the conflict in the first place. Section 9. A World Remade, the Enduring Legacy of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles, despite its flaws, fundamentally reshaped the world. It redrew the map of Europe, led to the creation of new states, and contributed to the rise of new ideologies and power dynamics. It also gave birth to the first global attempt at collective security through the League of Nations. Its legacy continues to shape international relations today, serving as both a warning and a guide as we navigate the complexities of our interconnected world. The treaty reminds us that peace is a process, not an event, and that building a more just and peaceful world requires ongoing dialogue, cooperation, and a commitment to learning from the mistakes of the past. The Treaty of Versailles may not have achieved its intended goal of lasting peace, but its impact on the trajectory of the 20th century and beyond is undeniable. It stands as a stark reminder of the enduring power of treaties and the importance of crafting them wisely, for they have the power to shape the destiny of nations in the course of history.